There were a lot of concerns before seizing the assets, before introducing the revenues, provision of revenues to Ukraine, and we managed it. The euro is still where it has to be, so it's around 20% of all the global turnover and reserves it is in euros. So we did this, and we shouldn't avoid the discussion. Let's do this. Let's start it now within the European Union. Address G7. Of course, we understand that within the G7 it will be easier to be implemented and move forward. Because if we are not doing it right now, we're just wasting the time. And the discussion for the next year, where we will get the resources to support Ukraine in 2026, will be really difficult.
So, are you arguing in favor of confiscating the money even before a peace deal with Russia?
Yes, we have to do it right now, and we have to start building up the process. And we have to take the money, assets, central bank assets from Euroclear, put it into one of the options, into a special purpose vehicle, and implement it through the legal process. And it can be provided as the guarantees in the form of loans to Ukraine, with some conditionality of reparations being paid by Russia, and this is how we will share the responsibility and the costs of the risks.
And what happens if the court decides that the confiscation is illegal?
Well, then we will bear all the consequences, us together, all, us the nations. Because anyway, we will assist Ukraine in providing the resources for their reconstitution and rebuilding. Even right now, we are already paying. So in this form, we would ease the discussion about the tensions in the budget planning. I'm not even mentioning international law that says that it is the obligation of each member of the international community to take the countermeasures against the aggressor.
And last question. What do you sense of momentum in this discussion compared to previous years?
I can compare to 1 year period of time, and I see that the right time is now, as more and more burden it is coming on European shoulders, and we are taking it, seeing how difficult it is to arrange the new packages, financially talking. So this is the resource that is laying just in front of us, and there are some concerns that we are not ignoring. Let's talk about it and let's move on. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm very grateful for Lars for inviting us here on a Saturday morning. It's great to be here. Center of discussions today will be Russia's war against Ukraine, and I'm devastated to see the recent attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure, but also on the EU delegation's office in Kiev, and therefore the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has summoned the Russian ambassador yesterday. And it is obvious that Russia does not want to stop the war, and therefore we must put more pressure on Russia. So we need to adopt the 19th sanctions package, but also move forward with the EU accession process for Ukraine. Today we will also discuss the situation in Gaza, and it's absolutely horrible, and it is of utmost importance that we put more pressure on both Hamas and on the Israeli government in order to have them allow humanitarian access to Gaza. And therefore I and my Dutch colleague have sent a letter to the Commission urging them to move forward with proposals, among others, on the stopping the trade part of the association agreement, because the suffering in Gaza, it must stop. Thank you. I'm very frustrated that the EU is not able to take the necessary decisions in order to move forward and put pressure on the Israeli government to allow humanitarian access, because what we see now, it's absolutely devastating and it breaks my heart. So we have an obligation to do what we can, and we must put more pressure on both Hamas and on the Israeli government.
Don't you put pressure on some of your colleagues in this room that they don't want to go further in Israel?
I'm very frustrated that the EU is not able to make decisions. I'm also very frustrated that the EU is not able to make decisions on the frozen assets in order to make sure that Ukraine can use those. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, good morning. Hi. Another important day. I'm replacing the Minister of Foreign Affairs as a Minister of Defense for the Netherlands. Of course, we will continue our discussion on Ukraine. Most importantly, to continue our military support and increase further pressure on Russia, because we see on a daily basis that Putin is not really willing to negotiate and to compromise, but more willing to continue his aggression and his terror against the Ukrainian population. So we need to put more sanctions on Russia and to strengthen our military support, and of course also talk about security guarantees for Ukraine. Second important conversation on the Middle East. Together with Sweden, we wrote a letter with a few points to both increase pressure on Hamas and on the Israeli government to come to a ceasefire, to stop the hostilities and to make sure that the hostages are released. I hope that we, at least today, can make sure that our positions become more united and that we can come to a more shared position on the steps that should be taken. For us as the Netherlands, it's also important that we strongly condemn the E1 plan, the illegal settlements, and that we will also propose an import ban on the illegal settlements, and hopefully it is possible also to find support for that.
What about the use of Russian frozen assets? What about the use of Russian frozen assets as part of the 19th sanctions package?
I think it's very good that we have a conversation about this in more depth, because this idea or this suggestion has been going around now for 3 years. And I think we need to make further progress on this. So I do understand the concerns of some of the member states. So I would say let's dig one level deeper and see how can we address those concerns, because I do think it is important to make progress on this.
How about Hungary blocking all the Ukraine policies you have tried
to be honest, when it comes to the EPF, for example, we had a discussion on it yesterday. To me, it's not only frustrating, but I think it's really counterproductive, because Hungary says that they are in favor of peace. And then the EPF can also be used, for example, for the Pearl Initiative, also to fund the American weapons and to supply them to Ukraine. So by blocking the EPF, Hungary is not only blocking or impeding Ukraine and the EU, but also the peace efforts by the United States. So I hope that Hungary will also change its position, given that we all are working together on peace. And these EU instruments can also help in this.
On Gaza, I frustrated by you that a lot of your colleagues in the room do not share your Swedish opinion on putting more pressure on Israel. And does the EU need to look at how it makes these decisions?
I think that given what's happening in Gaza and that the situation is only deteriorating on the one hand, and on the other hand, at the West Bank, we also see that Israel is further expanding its settlement policies. I think this should encourage us to become more united, because we need to further increase pressure for both a ceasefire and to act against the illegal settlements. I hope that some countries will now change their position. The Netherlands, for example, has also changed its position on a few of these measures. And hopefully we can make us more united and also make sure that we react to what's happening. I know how polarized the debate is. It's polarized also in the Netherlands. The reason why I'm here as a Minister of Defense and now replacing the Minister of Foreign Affairs is because it's such a sensitive and polarizing debate. And even that's in one country, let alone in 27 countries. So I do understand how difficult it is. But given what's happening every day, I think it should be possible to become more united. Yes, I'm in favor of that. Yeah.
Good morning. Slovenia, yes. Yes, please. I don't know what the discussion, but it's informal meeting. You know that Slovenia decided over the last few weeks to introduce bilateral measures against the Israeli government and against the terrible war in Gaza, killings of innocent civilians and also continuation of illegal settlements. We were the first EU country that introduced 2 ministers from Israeli government as persona non grata, also banned trade embargo with the Israeli government and also embargo on arms and also trade with the products from the Israeli settlements. And I have to say that I'm very seriously concerned to hear the last night decision of the US to ban visas for the Palestinian delegation and President Abbas to attend the high-level week in New York. So I do expect today a harsh, strong reaction, joint reaction from the European Union, and I also plan to call my partners in the European Union to really act with measures against the Israeli government. The last few weeks show that the Israeli government has no intention to stop the war and to reach an agreement on a ceasefire. Thank you so much. A še imajo v slovenščini? Me boš vprašala? Ja. Danes bomo govorili najprej o ruski agresiji v Ukrajini. Že sinoči smo se pogovarjali neformalno s kolegi, kako pritisniti na Rusijo, da bi dosegli takojšnje premirje in seveda pogoje za začetek pogajanj za pravičen in trajen mir, ki bo sprejemljiv za Ukrajino. Seveda so tu nujna varnostna zagotovila, vsa vprašanja, ki so s tem povezana, in skupaj si želimo z Ukrajinci, vsemi evropskimi in čezatlantskimi zavezniki sodelovati pri tem, da pridemo čim prej do miru. Zdaj vemo, da se je zgodil spet en grozljiv napad na Kijev in vsak dan nedolžni ljudje izgubljajo življenje. Pogovarjali se bomo tudi o zamrznjenih sredstvih na računih Ruske centralne banke. To je ena precej težka debata, bo tudi prva taka neformalna, zares poglobljena debata. So države, ki si želijo tu bolj konkretne korake, da se uporabi ta glavnica zamrznjenih sredstev. Zdaj mi smo tu malce bolj previdni oziroma spremljamo odločitve tistih držav, ki imajo bolj znatna sredstva, kot je Belgija, na svojih računih, oziroma odločitve Evropske centralne banke. Te odločitve morajo temeljiti na mednarodnem pravu, tako da danes pričakujem eno tako bolj neformalno razpravo. Seveda podpiramo koriščenje izrednih prihodkov teh zamrznjenega ruskega premoženja, predvsem pa tudi, da se še bolj učinkovito uporabljata sredstva zamrznjenih izrednih prihodkov. Danes bomo veliko pozornost namenili tudi vojni v Gazi, razmeram na Bližnjem vzhodu. Zdaj močno skrbi sinočnja odločitev ZDA za to, da ne izda vizumov palestinski delegaciji predsedniku Abbasu, ki bi moral nagovoriti tako Varnostni svet kot OZN v tednu visokem septembra v New Yorku, ko bojo države odločale o morebitnih novih priznanjih Palestine kot suverene in neodvisne države. Jaz zelo obsojam to odločitev ZDA, ker gre za kršitve pogodbe kot države gostiteljice, ki mora dejansko omogočiti, da lahko vse delegacije sodelujejo na zasedanju in da res poteka dialog in pa spoštljivost, oziroma da lahko organizacija normalno deluje. Tako da danes pričakujem najmanj oster odziv, skupen odziv Evropske unije, pričakujem pa tudi, da se bomo resno in odgovorno pogovarjali, kako nadaljevati s sankcijami, s pogovorom, kako sankcionirati izraelsko vlado. Vemo, da v zadnjih tednih je ta nadaljevala vojaške akcije tudi na Gazo, prisilno razseljevanje ljudi, pobijanje civilistov, da je uradno razglašena lakota med otroci, med prebivalstvom in težko je razumeti, da Evropska unija v tem delu ne ukrepa. In na mizi imamo predloge, ampak v odsotnosti soglasja znotraj Evropske unije bom kolege pozvala, naj sledijo zgledu Slovenije.
So good morning. I'm just very happy to be in Copenhagen for Gimnik meeting. We will discuss, as you know, Russian aggression against Ukraine. We will discuss Middle East, and of course I will be calling for more sanctions, to be ready to have a more sanction on Russian Federation. I hope that we will discuss our former Czech proposal to limit the movement of Russian diplomatic staff through the Schengen area. I would like to reiterate that it's not only about the fact that this network serves to the operation of Russian secret services, but also limits our ability to call for reciprocity in the diplomatic relations between respective countries like Czechia and Russia So it's very important that we discuss this proposal. It's in our benefit.
What about the use of Russian frozen assets as part of the 19th sanctions package?
I support it. We support it. Let's see what will be the mood around the table. Definitely. Yes?
Yesterday, the Vice President of the Security Council in Russia threatened your neighbor country, Austria, directly. Doesn't that need a strong answer from all the EU member states if he picks out a single country and threatens that with military?
Again, sorry, what he threatened?
Medvedev threatened Austria to use violence if we change something with neutrality. Doesn't that need a strong answer to if Russia picks out a single country with threats?
I don't hear what he threatened with.
To use military power against Austria if we change something about a neutral stand.
I think the concept of the Austrian neutrality, it's given historically, and it's up to Austrian people to decide how they wish to orient their country. So I absolutely refuse any such calls. Russia has no say into Austrian foreign policy.
What do you think about your neighbors using energy from Russia, like Slovakia and
So Czechia, as well as Hungary and Slovakia, is Central European landlocked country, and we are not dependent on Russian fossil fuels, simply because last 3 years we invested into new pipeline, TAL Plus line. It was needed to upgrade, so we are now completely independent on Druzhba pipeline. Basically, the Czech part is not being used. We deliver gas through Netherlands and Germany, and we are also diversifying the energy, the supplies for the nuclear power plants. So they could follow the same way.
Doesn't seem to be able to agree.
Please louder.
Okay. The EU doesn't seem to be able to agree on putting more pressure on Israel. Why is that?
It depends what the discussion on Israel is, and we are ready to support quite a lot of things, but very often we like the real debate on that. So
some of your colleagues have written letters even calling for.
I think Kaja Kallas was very successful when was she in Israel, for example, with opening humanitarian corridors. So if we do it properly, we are able, for example, to help with the humanitarian situation. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we have an important meeting of foreign ministers today, but can I firstly say, from an Irish perspective, how relieved and delighted I am that an Irish citizen in Haiti was released last night from captivity. Gina Herity is an incredible humanitarian worker. She represents the very best of us, someone who has dedicated 3 decades of her life to looking after vulnerable children in Haiti. It has been an extraordinarily stressful and worrying time for Gina's family, for Gina's friends, for Gina's colleagues. And I just want to thank everybody who has been involved in working to secure her release. My own department officials, our diplomats, our embassy in the United States, our UN and EU partners, and local community leaders as well. I really want to wish Gina all the best. I ask that her privacy be respected at this time, and I really want to thank her family for working intensively with us. And I've been talking to them on a very regular basis, and they're wonderful, wonderful people, and I want to wish them all the very best after what has been an extraordinarily stressful time. I'm so delighted and relieved that Gina has finally been released. Today at the Foreign Affairs Council in the Gimnick format, I'd be very eager that we come together to have a proper conversation about what more can be done to actually make talks about peace in Ukraine a reality. While Putin is, talking about peace, he's doing absolutely nothing to indicate any willingness to bring it about. In fact, his reign of terror continues. He's making a mockery of the world that is engaging in dialogue, diplomacy to try and bring about peace. He still won't meet President Zelensky. He still won't agree to an unconditional ceasefire. And this week, of course, he hit and targeted our EU offices in Kyiv. So yesterday at our defence meeting, we discussed what more we can do to assist Ukraine. Today, as foreign ministers, I think we have to consider what more we can do in terms of sanctions against Russia. We are clearly going to need now to prepare for the worst, whilst always hoping for the best. We need to be much more robust in relation to our sanctions regime against Russia. We need to have a good, detailed discussion on the issue of the use of frozen assets as well, and I hope we can make progress on those matters today. Can I just say, though, in relation to Gaza, if the European Union does not act as a collective now and take sanctions against Israel, whenever will it? What more could it possibly take? Children are starving. In fact, we now have reports of children who cannot even cry because they no longer have the strength. We have been told by international organisations that there is a famine underway in Gaza. There is genocidal activity. And being honest, it's not enough to say, I want to see a ceasefire. It's not enough to condemn the actions. You have to say, what are we going to do as a European Union to help bring about the ceasefire? What are we going to do to make the Netanyahu government stop the killing of children, stop the killing of civilians? What are we going to do to ensure humanitarian aid can flow? And what are we going to do to make sure the hostages can be released? I think the world is looking at the European Union. I think our citizens are looking at the European Union, and they are not happy. We are not doing nearly enough. So the time for fine words of condemnation, words matter, but they're not enough. We now have to actually take very clear, very concrete actions to show that we actually have values in this European Union and we intend to stand up for them. We intend to defend those values. And if you're found to be in breach of human rights clauses under an EU association agreement, that is not a consequence-free zone. So today I really hope we can move beyond words of condemnation, words about let's have another meeting in a month's time, and actually a substantive conversation about what sanctions the European Union can take as a collective. I think that's essential. And can I finally say, I'm very concerned about what we've seen overnight in terms of the revoking of visas for Palestinian Authority leaders due to travel to the United Nations for high-level week. A huge amount of work has been done, led by the French and the Saudis, to prepare for a conference on a two-state solution. And the idea that the leader of the Palestinian Authority would be deprived an opportunity to attend that simply isn't acceptable. And I believe the EU as a whole should protest this decision in the strongest possible terms. Thank you.
Goedemorgen. Een grote aanval weer afgelopen nacht van Rusland op Oekraïne. Wat kan er worden gedaan om Rusland te stoppen?
Nou, waar we het in ieder geval vandaag over zullen hebben is om de druk verder op te voeren als het gaat om sancties. Dat zijn sancties zowel natuurlijk richting Rusland direct als secundaire sancties tegen landen die de Russische oorlogsmachine blijven financieren.
Hebben die sancties wel voldoende effect? Er zijn nu al 18 sanctiepakketten, dit zouden 19 sanctiepakketten worden. En Rusland blijft toch maar steeds doorgaan met die aanvallen waar we ook heel veel burgers mee om het leven komen.
Ja. Nee, de realiteit is dat het niet van de een op de andere dag lijkt dat Rusland zijn koers verandert. Wat we vooral natuurlijk hopen is dat met die sancties dat er zand in de radar wordt gestrooid van de Russische oorlogsmachine.
Wil Rusland wel een vrede?
Daar ziet het niet naar uit. Volgens mij wil Rusland en Poetin willen vooral hun terreur en hun agressie voortzetten, omdat ze hopen dat ze daarmee de Oekraïnse bevolking kunnen breken. Aan de andere kant weten we hoe vastberaden en hoe sterk de Oekraïnse bevolking is met steun van Europa en ook de Verenigde Staten. Dus wij moeten laten zien dat we in staat zijn om die druk te weerstaan en juist de andere kant op de druk op te voeren. Nou, daarom spreken we vandaag ook weer over die sancties. En natuurlijk ook aan het voortzetten van de militaire steun en het verder invullen van veiligheidsgaranties.
Vandaag gaat het ook over dat andere belangrijke onderwerp, Gaza en Israël. De buitenlandcoördinator zei vanochtend al dat ze niet optimistisch is dat het zal lukken om eensgezindheid te vinden binnen de Europese Unie over sancties tegen Israël. Wat zegt dat?
Dat zegt dat het, net als in Nederland, dat het ook in Europa een debat is dat polariseert, waarover verschillende opvattingen zijn. Dat het moeilijk is om die opvattingen bij elkaar te brengen. Je ziet ook dat sommige landen bijvoorbeeld wel voor de ene maatregel zijn en weer niet voor de ander. Tegen de regering Netanyahu bijvoorbeeld. En dat als je dan per maatregel bekijkt, dat er uiteindelijk geen gekwalificeerde meerderheid voor is. Wat ik hoop is dat gegeven dat de situatie in Gaza alsmaar slechter wordt en dat Israël verder gaat met het nederzettingenbeleid, het zogenaamde EE-plan, dat het wel toe heeft geleid dat landen op een aantal maatregelen hun positie hebben veranderd. Hetzelfde geldt voor Nederland. Wij hebben ook gezegd dat we bijvoorbeeld een importboycott willen uit de illegale nederzettingen. Nou, dat was een positie die Nederland een half jaar geleden ook niet had. Dus hopelijk komen landen daarmee meer op één lijn en lukt het wel om voor bepaalde maatregelen richting een gekwalificeerde meerderheid te gaan.
Israël beloofde vorige maand om meer hulp toe te laten, dat gaat maar moeizaam. Toen zei de Europese Unie, als dat niet gebeurt, dan overwegen we om stappen te nemen tegen Israël. Wat betekent dat als dat nu niet gebeurt, dan heeft dat juist dat Israël niet het idee dat het kan doorgaan op de ingevraagd werd?
Nou, dat is ook de reden dat wij samen met Zweden die brief hebben gestuurd waarin we zeggen de druk op Hamas moet ook omhoog via de partners in de regio met name. Maar aan de andere kant ook op de regering Netanyahu. En die voorstellen die we eerder hebben gedaan als Nederland, namelijk het opschorten van het handelsdeel van het associatieakkoord en het gedeeltelijk opschorten van het Horizon-programma, wat gaat over technologische en wetenschappelijke samenwerking. Nou, dat zijn twee van die concrete maatregelen die je dan kunt nemen. Ja, en omdat wij vinden dat dat dan ook moet, dat je dan ook consequent moet zijn wanneer je dat eerder hebt aangekondigd. Daarom hebben we ook die brief gestuurd. En we zullen vandaag zien of dat daar nu wel voldoende steun voor is.
Ja, denkt u dat Israël juist niet onder de indruk zal zijn van Europa als het steeds verdeeld is en de dreigementen niet waarmaken?
Ik denk dat dat wel de invloed van de EU vermindert. Het is heel duidelijk, kijk, op het moment dat Europa verenigd is, zoals bijvoorbeeld in de steun aan Oekraïne vaak het geval is, ja, dan kun je ook een vuist maken. En op het moment dat je verdeeld bent, dan wordt dat een stuk ingewikkelder. Klopt.
Misschien het allerergste nog, er is nog steeds veel te weinig hulp, voedsel en medicijnen die Gazastrook binnen. Wat kan er nu nog worden gedaan om te zorgen dat het wel daadwerkelijk snel veel meer wordt?
Nou ja, door aan de ene kant ervoor te zorgen dat we met de partners in de regio ook de druk op Hamas opvoeren, zodat ze eindelijk eens ophouden met hun terreurcampagne, het vasthouden van de gijzelaars en ook bereid zijn om grote concessies te doen. En aan de andere kant, ja, ook de druk op de regering Netanyahu moet omhoog. En dat kan met de voorstellen die wij ook hebben gedaan. En daarnaast moeten we natuurlijk voor zorgen dat we ook de internationale organisaties en de NGO's die daar ter plekke kunnen helpen, dat we die ook daar vol in ondersteunen.
U hebt gisteravond kunnen dineren met uw collega's. Had je toen al een indruk gekregen of af een bepaalde maatregelen?
Nee, in de zin dat ik ben niet al mijn collega's, alle 26 langs gegaan om dat te inventariseren. Maar mijn beeld is natuurlijk hetzelfde als dat van de EU-hoofdvertegenwoordiger, dat het verdeeld ligt. Dus nou ja, wat ik zei, ik hoop dat landen in ieder geval vandaag wat dichter bij elkaar komen. En of dat daadwerkelijk zo is, dat zullen we zien.
Ik ben niet optimistisch.
Ja, als mevrouw Kallas niet optimistisch is, dan moet ik me daarbij aansluiten. Kijk, zij is degene die het beste overzicht heeft van alle posities. Waar ik wel wat optimistischer over ben, is dat het mogelijk zou moeten zijn om in ieder geval wat dichter naar elkaar toe te bewegen. Maar of dat daadwerkelijk zo is, dat zullen we vandaag moeten zien.
Ziet u wel de mogelijkheid om een aantal oproep te vormen om stappen?
Dat denk ik wel. Alleen de vraag is hoeveel er dat zijn. Dat zullen we echt niet alleen vandaag, maar ook de komende tijd moeten bekijken.
Je ziet wel in ieder geval posities komen van deze voorzitter die zijn wel dat het gewoon tijd is geworden.
Ja, ik denk dat het EE-plan, zoals dat heet, dat er wel toe leidt dat landen echt ook hun positie hebben aangepast. Dat geldt ook voor Nederland. Wij zeggen nu ook van er moeten strengere maatregelen worden genomen tegen dat nederzettingenbeleid. En het tweede is dat natuurlijk in Gaza de situatie elke dag schrijnender wordt. Ja, en dat leidt er ook toe, omdat we op dit moment niet een staakt het vuren zien, maar juist dat Israël nog een militaire campagne is begonnen, ja, dat we nu ook in actie moeten komen.
Wat is er nog nodig om de Europese Unie en de landen wel op één lijn te krijgen?
Ik denk uiteindelijk op dagen als vandaag om daar veel met elkaar over te spreken en ook te kijken van, kijk, als ieder land verschillende maatregelen wil, dat betekent dat er wel een grondhouding is om in ieder geval iets te doen. En als we nou op basis van die grondhouding kunnen kijken van wat zijn nou dingen waarin we wel op één lijn kunnen komen en ons daarop te richten, dan zou het mogelijk moeten zijn om onderuit te komen met elkaar. Maar dat kost gewoon veel tijd. Dat kost tijd op diplomatiek niveau. Vandaag hebben we een informeel overleg waarin we ook wat meer vrij uit tussen de ministers kunnen spreken. Ja, en dan zijn dit soort uren kunnen we ook nuttig besteden om te kijken of we toch iets meer op één lijn kunnen komen.
Zelfs als dat zou lukken, denkt u dat Israël ervan onder de indruk is dat het echt het zal veranderen als de Europese Unie ergens zit?
Uiteindelijk zal het niet doorslaggevend zijn en zal het een beperkte bijdrage leveren. Daar moeten we realistisch over zijn. Maar een beperkte bijdrage is altijd beter dan niks doen. Ja.
Hello. You said yesterday that a decision made about Gaza today in terms of the humanitarian situation.
Spain has proposed an action plan for Gaza and for Palestine. The EU is doing too little, too late, and doing nothing, haven't achieved anything. So the time of declaration is really over. We have to move forward. So I sent by letter to the High Representative an overall action plan of the EU that all member states have already, with several measures. First, to impose an arms embargo of selling weapons to Israel from the European Union. Secondly, to enlarge the list of people that are being sanctioned to anyone, absolutely anyone, that wants to spoil the two-state solution that is the only solution that will bring peace and stability to the Middle East. Third, we have to back financially, very heavily, the Palestinian National Authority that is been struggling because of Israel withholding the taxes that should go to that Palestinian authority. And fourth, we have to enforce and to comply with all the rulings and all the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice. For instance, stopping all trade with products coming from the illegal settlements. And also, based on Article 2 of the Council of Association between the European Union and Israel, we propose the full suspension of that agreement between the European Union and Israel. We cannot do business as usual when we see this incredible and terrible humanitarian situation in Gaza, in which thousands of Palestinians are facing death by starvation, by an induced famine by Israel. And we are talking about children, about babies. This is unacceptable. The European Union can only relate to Israel through human rights. And if there is a massive violation, as the report of the Commission has clearly indicated, we must act. This is not anymore the time of words. It's the time for action. Action to stop the war. Action to break the blockade of famine from Israel to Gaza. And that's why Spain has proposed an action plan with things that, by the way, are nothing extraordinary. It's just fulfilling and complying with our own European legislation or international legislation. That's all. And certainly, we are going to continue pushing forward. And at the same time, we are completely in favor of the UN conference for the two-state solution. A little bit more than a year ago, Spain started a new way of recognition of the Palestinian statehood. Around 10 more countries are going to join us very soon. And we will be a majority of countries in the European Union after that new wave of recognition that Spain started in the European Union. And it is unacceptable that the Palestinian delegation or Mahmoud Abbas couldn't attend. United Nations, its protection, its immunity, it's worldwide. And European Union must be at the forefront of those that defend it. That should be also a clear message from today's meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, good morning. Looking forward for today's informal Foreign Affairs Council meeting. I'm here representing European Commission to discuss the agenda point concerning further financial support for Ukraine, including possibilities of using Russian immobilized assets for this purpose. Well, it's clear that Russia's aggression against Ukraine continues unabated, and it's clear that as European Union we must continue to provide all necessary support for Ukraine, including financial support for the next year. So this is going to be the focus of today's discussion. What options do we have for financing Ukraine for next year? How do we plug the funding gap? And how do we do it at the EU level and cooperate internationally. Thank you.
So, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here in Copenhagen this morning. I would like to start with warm words to the Danish presidency. Thank you so much. But you certainly know at the beginning of the week I was in Odessa in Benelux format. And let me be clear for Belgium. We will continue to provide support to Ukraine as long as it is be necessary. And last Wednesday we decided within the Belgian government to put 100 million on the table for taking part in the Pearl initiative. But I know, you know, that one of the issues that will be discussed this morning is related to the frozen assets. And let me be clear. For Belgium, those Russian sovereign assets must remain immobilized until Russia compensates Ukraine for the damage it has inflicted and continues to inflict on a daily basis. So we need to use those immobilized assets as a leverage for negotiations. So it means that Belgium is against any confiscation of those assets. Why? Because those assets are solidly protected under international law. And it means that confiscating them would trigger a systemic financial instability and also erodes trust in the euro. So these are fundamental risks for all the member states. And those immobilized assets are already used to great effect, and they are already benefiting Ukraine through the windfall profits and also the ERA loan mechanism. The EU and the G7 have already used them for a support which is over 50 billion euros. So that means that's really important for Ukraine, and we need to keep them immobilized for continuing supporting Ukraine. If you want the goose to keep laying golden eggs, you must not kill the goose. That's really the key message we would like to share in the name of the Belgian government. So confiscating those assets is not an option for us. Changing the investment strategy is not an option as well, because it could increase the level of risk, both legal, financial and judicial risk. Thank you for your attention.
Ja, guten Morgen, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren. Wie Sie wissen, komme ich von einem sehr erfolgreichen deutsch-französischen Gipfel in Toulon zurück. Der deutsch-französische Motor läuft wieder. Wir haben exzellente Gespräche gehabt und haben uns vorgenommen, für die Europäische Union auch neue Initiativen zu ergreifen und dafür beizutragen, dass wir ein handlungsfähiges Europa sehen. Wir haben natürlich mit zahlreichen Krisen zu tun, die uns auch hier heute beschäftigen werden. Der französische Kollege Jean-Noël Barrot und ich werden hier über den Prozess der E3 mit Iran informieren. Es ist vollkommen klar, Iran darf keine Atomwaffe besitzen. Und deswegen haben wir uns genötigt gesehen, den sogenannten Snapback-Mechanismus jetzt auch in Kraft zu setzen. Ich will hier noch einmal betonen, es gibt die Möglichkeit einer diplomatischen Lösung. Iran sollte sie nutzen. Man kann diese Frist noch einmal verlängern und die nächsten 30 Tage müssen genutzt werden. Wir sind guten Willens, das zu machen. Aber wir brauchen jetzt die klare Zusage des Iran, dass er sich auf uns zubewegt und dass er insbesondere mit der Internationalen Atomenergiebehörde bereit ist zu kooperieren und ein sauberes Verfahren vor dem Sicherheitsrat der Vereinten Nationen einzuleiten. Wenn das geschieht, dann ist es möglich, dass wir auf diplomatischem Wege zu einer Vertragslösung kommen. die am Ende dafür sorgt, dass diese Welt sicher bleibt und nicht ein weiterer Staat atomar bewaffnet sein wird. Und wir werden natürlich auch darüber sprechen, wie wir dafür sorgen, dass endlich die Verhandlungen zwischen der Ukraine und Russland über einen Waffenstillstand und vor allen Dingen über eine Friedensvereinbarung beginnen können. Ich rate uns allen, die richtigen Debatten in dieser Zeit zu führen. Und die richtige Debatte ist allein diejenige, ob und wann Wladimir Putin an den Verhandlungstisch kommt. Wir Europäer haben nie zu denjenigen gehört, die erwartet haben, dass dies binnen einer Woche der Fall sein könnte. Und wir erfahren jeden Tag, dass Putin seinen Krieg fortführt. Die Ukrainerinnen und Ukrainer leiden darunter in schrecklicher Art und Weise. Und die Drohnenschwärme und die Raketenangriffe, die Bombardements auf zivile Ziele zeigen, Putin will nicht verhandeln. Putin führt seinen Krieg fort. Und deswegen muss das Wesentliche, was wir jetzt zu tun haben, sein, dass wir den Druck auf Putin erhöhen. Und dazu gehört, dass wir uns genau anschauen, was wir uns vorgenommen haben an Unterstützungsmaßnahmen. Und ich kann sagen, nur erfüllte Unterstützungszusagen bringen Russland an den Verhandlungstisch. Und da sollten wir uns miteinander ehrlich machen und schauen, was noch getan werden kann und was wir schon bisher zugesagt haben, wo es Nachholbedarf gibt und wo wir sicherlich auch über weitere Maßnahmen miteinander sprechen. Alle weiteren Fragen können und sollten wir danach diskutieren. Das Entscheidende ist, dass jetzt Putin an den Verhandlungstisch kommt. Und das sage ich auch an manch einen in der deutschen Diskussion, die immer gesagt haben, es würden nur Waffen geliefert und es gäbe keine Verhandlungsbereitschaft. Es liegt auf der Hand. Die Welt ist verhandlungsbereit, insbesondere die Ukraine ist verhandlungsbereit. Wer Krieg führen will, ist Wladimir Putin. Und wir müssen unsere Maßnahmen verstärken, dass er an den Verhandlungstisch kommt. Zunächst vielen Dank.
Herr Minister, warum sind eingefrorene russische Vermögen noch kein geeignetes Druckmittel, um Putin an den Verhandlungstisch zu zwingen?
Ich glaube, dass das Einfrieren dieser Mittel schon eine erhebliche Wirkung hat. Ich glaube auch, dass die Sanktionen, die wir bisher formuliert haben, schon eine erhebliche Wirkung, auch eine Inflationswirkung in Russland haben. Das ist der richtige Weg. Wir setzen ihn fort. Wir verhandeln jetzt über das 19. Paket. Und wir müssen uns sicherlich über viele Dinge Gedanken machen, die noch den Druck auf Russland weiter verstärken. Und ich glaube, wenn wir da Entschlossenheit und Klarheit zeigen, dann werden wir Russland an den Verhandlungstisch bekommen.
Welche weiteren Maßnahmen könnten das denn sein? Und was sprechen Sie denn da?
Ja, ich glaube, alles, was die wirtschaftliche Handlungsfähigkeit Russlands weiter einschränkt, das hat Wirkung. Das heißt, wir müssen uns selbstverständlich angucken, was den Handel mit Öl und Gas angeht. Das sind etwa Möglichkeiten. Wir sind schon auf einem guten Weg. Russland ist wirtschaftlich schon unter einem nicht unerheblichen Druck. Und ich glaube, wenn wir diesen Weg konsequent weiter fortsetzen, dann ist es richtig. Ich möchte aber auch noch einmal betonen, die Ukraine braucht eine weitere militärische und finanzielle Unterstützung. Und da ist noch lange nicht alles, was zugesagt worden ist, eingehalten.
Herr Minister, viele andere Mitgliedstaaten hoffen, dass die Bundesregierung jetzt nach der Sommerpause zu dem Horizon-Vorschlag der EU-Kommission Ja sagt, um den Druck auf Israel zu erhöhen. Werden Sie den anderen Mitgliedstaaten heute sagen können, dass die Bundesregierung das tun wird? Und wenn nein, warum nicht?
Also die Bundesrepublik Deutschland hat Maßnahmen ergriffen, die sehr deutlich machen, wo wir stehen. Wir erwarten nämlich, dass bei dem berechtigten Kampf gegen Hamas humanitäre Grundsätze eingehalten werden. Und deswegen haben wir insbesondere unsere Ablehnung der Pläne, Gaza City zu erobern, ganz deutlich gemacht, dadurch, dass wir entsprechende Waffenlieferungen eingeschränkt haben. Und ich glaube, das ist eine sehr gezielte Maßnahme, die sehr richtig ist und die sehr notwendig ist und die auch genau die Maßnahmen trifft, die wir verhindern wollen oder die Pläne verhindert, die wir treffen wollen, nämlich entsprechendes militärisches Engagement. Horizon ist eine Wissenschaftszusammenarbeit im zivilen Bereich. Ich wüsste nicht, dass eine Einstellung einer derartigen sinnvollen Kooperation zwischen der Europäischen Union und zivilen Stellen, Wissenschaftsorganisationen in Israel Einfluss haben könnte auf die politische Willensbildung und auf Pläne, militärisch im Gazastreifen weiter vorzugehen. Und deswegen sind wir von diesen Vorschlägen nicht so sehr überzeugt. Aber richtig bleibt, wir brauchen jetzt die Bereitschaft zum Waffenstillstand. Wenn es so ist, dass der Plan von Steve Witkoff eine erste Grundlage und ein erster Schritt sein kann, dann kann ich beide Seiten nur aufrufen, diesen Plan jetzt anzunehmen und danach weitere Schritte einzuleiten. Ich stehe in Kontakt, natürlich besonders engerweise mit der israelischen Regierung, aber auch mit Kollegen in den arabischen Nachbarstaaten. Deutschland wird alles dafür tun, dass es auf dieser Grundlage zu einer ersten Einigung kommt. Herzlichen Dank.
Buongiorno. Mr. Minister, is there any consensus on how to look forward when it comes to Gaza?
We are against the Israel decision to attack Gaza City. There is a document with our signature against this. First of all, for us, we need to stop this attack, to achieve the ceasefire. It's crucial, of course, the freedom of the hostages immediately, without conditions. And then we need to work for achieving the solution to people, to states. This is the Italian position. On Monday, I will receive in Rome the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the National Palestinian Authority. We will visit together the hospitals, Italian hospitals, with children coming from Gaza. Italy is the country in the world with Emirates, Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar, with more refugees coming from Palestine. At this moment it's important to help the civil population and to push hard for the ceasefire. This is a priority absolute.
Come è andato l'incontro con il ministro tedesco?
Molto bene, c'è un'identità di vedute tra Italia e Germania sulla situazione internazionale, sia per quanto riguarda l'Ucraina. Vogliamo che si arrivi finalmente alla fine di una guerra, non sarà facile, e bisogna convincere Putin anche attraverso sanzioni affinché si sieda al tavolo della pace, perché è una guerra che non può continuare a lungo e non deve continuare a lungo. Lo stesso sulla Palestina, la situazione in Medio Oriente, abbiamo una visione comune e ha invitato il ministro Vadeful a parlare alla riunione degli ambasciatori d'Italia annuale che si svolge prima della pausa natalizia, e lui ha accettato il nostro invito e sarà a Roma come oratore per parlare dei rapporti diplomatici della Germania, per avere anche una valutazione tedesca. L'anno scorso è venuto il ministro degli esteri svizzero, anni fa è venuta la presidente Metsola, quindi abbiamo sempre degli ospiti stranieri per arricchire il dibattito. Quindi bene, con la Germania le relazioni con questo governo sono ottime.
Senta, sulle sanzioni appunto all'Ucraina, sì, alla Russia, oggi è una delle discussioni del Gimni, 19° pacchetto sanzioni, come fare a costringere la Russia a venire al tavolo. L'Italia è pronta a fare di più da questo punto di vista? Che idee sostiene per rafforzare il pacchetto sanzionatorio contro la Russia?
Io credo che si debbano fare delle sanzioni finanziarie che costringono Putin a non avere più i mezzi economici per pagare stipendi altissimi, 3 volte tanto quello di un operaio, ai propri militari. Quindi credo che questo sia far venire meno gli strumenti finanziari, quindi bisogna fare delle sanzioni finanziarie. Non credo che ci sia la base giuridica per fare invece un altro tipo di sanzione, cioè nei confronti di quelli che hanno dei privati russi che per i beni confiscati, quelli mi pare che non ci sia la base giuridica per poter fare, quindi bisogna sempre stare dalla parte della ragione ma dalla parte del torto.
Il meccanismo anticoercizione, quello approvato all'11° pacchetto, se voi sareste in favore ad attivarlo, fino adesso non è ancora mai stato attivato.
Ora vediamo, ne parliamo, cioè noi siamo pronti a fare tutto ciò che serve per sostenere l'Ucraina e per cercare di convincere la Russia ad arrivare a più miti consigli, capire che l'atteggiamento che ha è un atteggiamento sbagliato, anche perché gli attacchi contro la popolazione civile che continuano sono privi di senso e non producono secondo noi alcun effetto se non fare danni alla popolazione civile.
Ministro, scusi, sul Medio Oriente lei parlava della necessità del cessate il fuoco e c'è una proposta di mediazione che è lì e langue sul tavolo, da Israele non c'è ancora una risposta. Una pressione su Israele tramite le sanzioni e su Netanyahu, in particolare su Gaza e il cessate il fuoco, oltre che ovviamente sui coloni di cui lei ci parlava ieri?
Io credo che intanto quella sui coloni, incrementare il numero di coloni che sono oggetto di sanzioni potrebbe essere una scelta condivisibile, un messaggio chiaro per impedire di minare la base di uno Stato palestinese in futuro, perché l'occupazione della Cisgiordania e il continuo inserimento di nuovi coloni, di nuovi insediamenti significa minare alla base la possibilità di avere uno Stato palestinese, cosa che noi invece vogliamo costruire. Ne ha parlato anche l'altro ieri con il ministro degli esteri saudita che era in visita a Roma, abbiamo firmato anche un documento comune. Come ho detto, lunedì ci sarà a Roma il ministro degli esteri dell'autorità nazionale palestinese. Noi continuiamo a considerare l'autorità nazionale palestinese il nostro unico interlocutore possibile. Israele continuiamo a dire basta, Israele ha vinto contro Hamas, ora credo che sia il momento della costruzione, non della distruzione. È stato superato il limite della reazione legittima dopo l'attacco del 7 di ottobre e ora bisogna costruire, non continuare a distruggere. Naturalmente Hamas deve liberare tutti gli ostaggi senza porre ulteriori condizioni, perché continuando così rischia di sempre più di usare il proprio popolo come scudo per le loro operazioni militari, quindi è corresponsabile anche di ciò che sta accadendo.
May I ask you a question in English, please?
Yes, before in Italian, then in English, ok?
Una domanda sul safe havens. La Danimarca ha offerto di permettere di produrre armi ucraine qua sul territorio danese. È qualcosa che l'Italia sta considerando?
No, noi, se la Danimarca vuole produrre armi può benissimo farlo. Noi siamo pronti, abbiamo già inviato armi e altri strumenti militari all'Ucraina. Finché ci sarà la guerra siamo pronti a fare tutto ciò che serve dal punto di vista politico, militare, finanziario per sostenere l'Ucraina e anche per la ricostruzione. Come sapete c'è stato a Roma il grande vertice mondiale per la ricostruzione che è stato un grande successo. L'Ucraina sa di avere l'Italia al proprio fianco in tutti i settori. Siamo contrari a inviare militari italiani in territorio ucraino, ma questo è un'ipotesi della quale si parla per il dopo fine guerra. Noi consideriamo invece strumento utile per la sicurezza, unico strumento utile per la sicurezza dell'Ucraina, dar vita ad un trattato che coinvolga diversi paesi, compresi gli Stati Uniti, sul modello dell'articolo 5 della NATO. Questo potrebbe essere una garanzia veramente efficace per il futuro dell'Ucraina.
There appears to be a new push to confiscate the frozen Russian assets. A number of your colleagues have vehemently called for that this morning. And they also pointed to the financing needs of Ukraine next year and the increasing difficulty to cover that. What is Italy's position?
At the juridical level, it's not easy to do it. For this, we need to be very serious on this. We need to respect the rules. But otherwise it's possible to study financial sanctions using all other systems. But I think for this is difficult to respect the rules, the juridic basis.
So in the event, I mean, there's two discussions. One is confiscating the money now. The other discussion is what happens if Russia does not pay reparations in case of a peace treaty. Would it then be possible to use this money and pay for the recovery of Ukraine?
It's possible, but I think, as I said, we need to respect the rules. We need to study if this is possible to do.
I think the High Representative thinks she can do it, and she has. I mean, you can always find legal advice.
His position, of course, is correct. The positions, but before a decision, we need to study if this is possible to do, because as a juridical level, for me, is very complicated. This is a juridical problem. It's not a political decision. She's pushing hard in this direction, but I don't know if it's possible to do it. We need sanctions, but I don't know if it's possible to use this system for pushing Putin.
Senti, lei ha parlato di sanzioni ai coloni, benissimo, sempre Israele, ma alcuni paesi europei spingono invece anche per sanzionare i ministri all'interno del gabinetto Netanyahu che sostengono i coloni violenti.
Cominciamo con i coloni, poi vediamo cosa succede.
Potrebbe essere possibile, l'Italia potrebbe sostenere questa posizione?
Cominciamo con sanzionare i coloni, più coloni e in maniera più dura. Poi vediamo se la prima tappa è questa, poi se non serve a molto si possono studiare altre tappe, ma cominciamo con intanto già decidere la sanzione sui coloni, nuove sanzioni sui coloni e a più coloni, è già un messaggio forte in direzione della difesa delle fondamenta di un nuovo Stato palestinese, perché se finisce la Cisgiordania, se viene annessa la Cisgiordania, vuol dire che finisce l'ipotesi di uno Stato palestinese nel quale noi crediamo. Non c'è oggi, però dobbiamo lavorare per costruirlo. Quindi cominciamo con i coloni, poi vediamo.
Non è un no, lo prendo come un no netto.
No, adesso facciamo questo, poi le altre cose si vedranno.
No, we don't have the.
especially for our southern colleagues. So I'm very, very sorry about that. But you know, I'm just when we have the agendas and they are so full, and then they give me the timelines. It's like, you know, I can't possibly pressure, you know, everything into these slots if we don't start earlier, because we have today a lot of very substantial topics. First, we start, of course, with Russia's war against Ukraine, and then we have a deeper discussion about the frozen assets, because we really need to have this discussion amongst ourselves about the pros and cons and the risks. And then we talk about the Middle East. A lot is happening there, so this is also quite a substantive discussion, and then also working methods, because this is what I also want to discuss with you. Remember, when I started, we had the morning breakfast on the working methods. Now I've been in the office for half a year, a bit more, so I have ideas and definitely what we can do to better, and to also listen from you. But first session, we have also our good colleagues from Norway. So Espen, where are you? There, good. Norway, we have UK, and we have Iceland. And we have our good colleague also from the European Parliament, the chair of the AFET committee, David McAllister, with us. So welcome all, and really the discussion regarding the work we do and what is happening in the war against Ukraine. I think it's extremely important to have your views as well, because we are in this together. And then, of course, I remind you that it's a Gimli format, which is, like Lars said yesterday, let's, as much as possible, ditch the papers and really talk openly. But at the same time, again, like I've told you several times, I'm super stressed by the time that, you know, I'm not limiting your speaking time or anything like that. We don't have clocks running here like we have in FAC. But at the same time, I ask you to be reasonable with the time still, because we need to have proper discussions on other topics as well. And if, you know, some are already, or, you know, something has already been said, then of course maybe there's no need to really repeat. Made some points here, but I really need to work on that handwriting, because I can't get understanding. But anyway, yeah. So I will now give the floor to you, Lars, and then we start.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kaja, and good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to welcome you to Forum, which is the meeting location for many of our informal ministerial meetings during our presidency. Perhaps you know that we Danes pride ourselves on architecture and design, and you must say that this building might not be an architectural masterpiece by today's standard, but I think we have did a good job of hiding it, so I hope everybody will feel comfortable. And I just echo what Kaja said about the added value with these informal meetings, so I have asked that we should, you know, be as few in the room as possible, and we also agreed that this meeting should be without any electronic devices. So if you haven't left your phones outside, I will urge you to do so we can have a very honest discussion. We are Danes. We haven't spent a lot on presidential gifts and stuff, but in front of you, you see a pen, which is not an ordinary pen or just any pen. It's made by Ukrainian bullet cases collected from the battlefield. So I hope you will appreciate this small gift. And we have, as Kaja said, a packed agenda, so I will try to limit myself. I think we have many important items on our agenda. Ukraine and the Middle East. In Ukraine, of course, we reacted swiftly and resolutely with vast support, but now we need to step up. I think it's quite obvious that Putin is dragging the time, so we need to do more to force him to the negotiating table. In the Middle East, it's no secret that we have found it much harder to act, but inaction is not an option. I contacted our colleague Gideon Saar a few days ago and called on him and Israel to reopen the medical evacuation corridor from Gaza to East Jerusalem. Also offered Danish help in treating patients from Gaza upon request. This will, of course, not bring an end to the conflict, but I think it's a way to be very concrete, putting pressure on Israel, and I hope that others will follow suit. And I'm looking forward to a discussion about that in this informal setting. I think I will limit myself to these few remarks. I'm eager to get started, and we are already running almost half an hour behind schedule. So we better get started. I hope we have a fruitful.
It's the worst place being elected. Being down Konstantinos is like being no president.
Hello, everybody. Please look at me.